Hello, everybody. Hockey is back. It's episode 55 of the Clappercast. I'm Burke,
And I'm Sean.
and we're super excited to dive into games that actually matter at this point. It's been a long time, and I know I'm super excited. I'm sure you are too, Sean. So let's crack right into playoff hockey. Feels
Yeah, I
good to
mean,
say that.
it does. I mean, it's this year. I mean, time isn't even actually a thing this year, so who cares that it's the beginning of August and we're watching playoff hockey? Um, it took a little while watching the first couple of games, kind of remember what's happening because it's been a long time, but you get back into the swing of things pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean the one major difference is I don't have to have like eight different games on at the same time because
Yeah,
there can only be two games on at any given time.
yeah. So
So it's
this is
kind of
actually
nice.
quite a nice arrangement because the league really likes to do that thing during the regular season where they schedule 8 games at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, so you can't really pay attention to every game. So this is kind of nice. Just they're offset just enough where you usually are able to switch at intermissions and catch a lot of the other game and then switch back. So it's been nice. So that being said, the playoffs, I guess, if you want to call them, so far, started on Saturday, and the first game was a pretty crazy game between the Rangers and Carolina Hurricanes. Came right out of the gate like flying, where there's lots of hits. There's a fight between Ryan Strome and Justin Williams. Kind of wild.
That's incredibly unexpected.
Yeah, so I mean, like, there was a lot of, people thinking like, oh, what's the intensity level going to be like? And then that game just came out and it was like, it's there. It is there. So
Yeah,
that was
yeah,
pretty
we were
cool
we
to
were kind of
see.
wondering like, is it going to take the players a little bit to get back into the groove, get their legs under them, like get the intensity back up? But no, that was immediate. They did not take any break from that.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was pretty cool to see. I guess the most notable, wow, I can't talk here. The most
Good
notable
word.
thing from that series so far is that Igor Shesterkin unable to play. So Henrik Lundqvist has been minding the net for the Rangers. So this could be kind of one of his last, starting jobs for the playoffs. So kind of interesting to see that.
Yeah, it's kind of his play's kind of taken a bit of a downswing over the last few seasons. He's no longer the dominant king of the net that he once was. So you don't expect that he's probably going to be the starter or maybe even in the league for too many more years. This is probably one of his last chances to make a big impact for the Rangers.
Yeah, and the Rangers went 0 for 7 on the power play in that first game. So, they're really helping out
Yeah,
Hank in the net,
it's
giving him some
a
run
lot of
support.
support from his Kingsguard or whatever there.
Yeah, so the Hurricanes are now up 2 games to 0 in that series. Um, Andrei Svechnikov
Yeah,
got a hat trick in game two, and that's
yeah. So if we refer back to our Eastern Conference previews when I forgot who Svechnikov was, I'm not forgetting who he is anymore.
yeah, he had a pretty nasty game. That's the first hat trick in Carolina Hurricanes history in playoffs. So that's pretty cool to see. Um, I'm trying to think if there's any other, crazy events that happened in that series, but I don't think there's anything too much
I
else
think,
going on.
yeah, I think the intensity's matched up to what we thought it would. It's been a really high, or it's been a fun series to watch, I should say. Like high intensity, back and forth action. The Carolina's control of the play and the pace of play has been showing, and they've been really shutting down the Rangers, especially their top guys like Panarin and Zibanejad.
Hmm
They've had their chances. They've got their a few points, but nothing overwhelming. And Carolina's top three offensive players have been dominating on that end. And even Carolina's depth, like a guy like Jordan Martinook, has been incredible for them so far.
Yeah, I think it was something like 8 players on the Rangers were making their playoff debut in game one, and that
Yikes!
level of inexperience has definitely kind of shown through a little bit. Where
Their defensive strength has been showing as well, and that's not in a good way either.
Yeah, absolutely. So things are looking good for Carolina in that series so far.
I wonder if Brindamore still wants that extra game.
Yeah, I don't know. It's looking good. I think that they have a good shot of winning the next game and winning that qualifying round matchup.
Yeah.
So what else happened on day one? We had a pretty high scoring game between the Blackhawks and the Oilers.
Yeah. It was the barn burner I predicted.
Yeah, it didn't go the way I predicted, and a lot of other people predicted, where um, we thought that Chicago was not going to match up very well. But Jonathan Taves and more accurately, Dominic Kubalik just put the team on their back and came out swinging. They came out looking really sharp, and then McDavid got an early power play goal, and then it was pretty much just Chicago, and the Oilers got a few goals here to make it look a little bit closer, but it was all Chicago. The Oilers had a few pretty bad defensive lapses, and Dominic Kubalik had a 5-point game. So I think that set an NHL record for a player making his debut, and it was
I
pretty
believe
cool to
so, yeah.
watch. He definitely Calder Trophy. Who cares? I'm in the playoffs now. That's all that
Yeah, move over
matters.
Calder Trophy, give him the Conn Smythe.
Yeah, exactly. He's on to a new trophy. So I mean, that was pretty crazy to see. Him coming in and just doing that. So it'll be
Yeah,
interesting to see if he keeps up that production. I mean, obviously, it's not going to have 5 points every night, but
that's
if
sustainable.
he's if
Come on.
he's going to remain that important to the Blackhawks offense. I know he hadn't played with Taves that much the whole year, and then they had to shake the lines up a bit, and it's working out so far. Um,
Definitely.
we had talked about how Chicago might struggle to contain the top two lines of the Oilers, but now that
Maybe we have to
Kubalik
flip
is
that.
such a threat, yeah, and if he's not playing with Kane, that might flip, and then um, the Oilers, I don't know, like what is their shutdown line right now? You're an Oilers fan, so um,
Their shutdown line is it like the thing is with the Oilers, they change the lines up every single game. So it's really hard to find one shutdown line. They have a few guys like having Archibald and Riley Sheahan a lot of the time, but he's been injured in camp, who ends up being kind of a shutdownish player. But they often just roll their best offensive line against the other best offensive lines. That's usually what happens.
yeah, I was kind of thinking about that, like who are they putting out there to match up against, um, those offensive players? If it's not Nuge, I don't know.
Yeah,
Do
yeah,
you move Nuge
yeah.
to?
Because Nuge is the best two-way forward the team has.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you move him to third line center and just put him out there in a shutdown role? I don't know.
I'm
Um,
honestly confused as to why they weren't rolling the Draisaitl, Yamamoto, Nugent Hopkins line that did so well in the regular season. Why they didn't have that going immediately.
yeah, I don't know.
And I mean the Oilers, like this is kind of what I touched on in our preview for that series, is like they are a piss poor defense or positioning piss poor possession team, pardon me, that they give up a lot of the play is controlled by the other team, especially 5-on-5. They don't do well 5-on-5. And where they make up is obviously their special teams that did actually really well in that first game. I think all of their goals were power play or something.
Yeah, their power play was definitely a bright spot. Their penalty kill was not, though. Their penalty kill was pretty bad. They they had Taves, like, they left him wide open in front of the net, and at
Yep.
one point all four penalty killers were in the one corner. So that was pretty bad. They had that
Yep.
momentary lapse. A few the one Kubalik goal on the power play, I think they had really there's no real nothing they could really done there. Um, but they've really got to show in playoffs, that same level of penalty killing as they did in the regular season, because it's on the line, right? They gotta get it in there. So power play was good. So if they can, maybe draw some more penalties and play up a man, that would be helpful. But
It depends if the league's going to roll with the actual NHL rulebook or the Connor McDavid rulebook.
yeah,
Because that's a usual issue where there's like 18 things that could be called against a player like infracting on McDavid every game, but that's maybe like one of them get called.
yeah, Yeah. We've had a few teams get off to kind of a good start and then get in some penalty trouble where there's a lot of too many men's being called. So you see a lot of that rust still on the teams. Um, I Vancouver did that last night in their game where they actually had a penalty going the other way, and then they were going to go up on the power play, and then they had a really sloppy change and ended up nullifying their own power play opportunity. And then they didn't get another power play until like 5 minutes left in the third when they were down by a few goals already. But I've seen a lot of too many men calls. Um,
Yeah, those are like the just yeah, like you said, the rust. It's like the flow of the game is just not in the players yet. It's kind of just like a preseason penalty.
yeah, those are a killer. They really get you down because it's so
Is
easy to avoid.
Yeah, is TSN gonna have to bring back their too many men penalty or song?
Yeah, I guess so. Maybe they'll have to bring out that camera that saved Team Canada from that delay of game penalty too.
Yeah, they'll just stick the camera where the players hop over on the bench and block them in.
Yeah, yeah, repurpose it on the bench.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I
They're
mean,
testing out new camera angles. It'll work.
the other thing for the Oilers is that they started Mike Smith, which I thought was kind of a weird way to go.
I agree. I don't
Um,
know why they would have started him because he's the worst of the two goalies, especially in a game where you want to have like someone to settle the players down and just be more reliable rather than Mike Smith's got a bit of a flair to his game. Koskinen's more settled down.
yeah, and I mentioned that in that game, Chicago came out flying, and then the Oilers got an early power play, and McDavid got a beautiful power play goal, and then Mike Smith directly caused a goal where he went out to play the puck and scrubbed it up, and Dylan Strome
Yeah.
just banked it off of him and scored, and that was like 3 minutes after McDavid scored, and it really shifted the momentum and just how the game was going. So, I mean, Mike Smith is known for playing the puck and being really aggressive on playing the puck, but it bites you in the ass a lot. So, it didn't
especially
didn't take
especially
long.
early on when like his hands probably aren't all there yet. He's been like they've been off for a while. They don't have like we were talking about like the flow of the game in them yet. Like it's still early. Mistakes, especially defensive type, like turnovers and stuff like that, are just going to happen more often.
It was kind of a curious move to start with Smith and not Koskinen. They eventually had to put Koskinen in that game in relief because Mike Smith let in, I don't know, like four or
I
something.
think I think it was the fifth goal,
Uh,
and then
um,
Koskinen let the sixth in.
so you
If
really got to think that it's Koskinen's net to lose now.
Yeah,
But it's just a very curious that he didn't have it from the onset.
I think that was a case of one of those things where the coaching staff wanted to go with the air quotes experienced guy because I
Yeah,
feel like that's the only real advantage that having Mike Smith over Mikko Koskinen in a game like that would have been because Koskinen that's his first NHL playoff game.
yeah, it was kind of a mind boggler for me. Like, as soon as I saw it, I sent you a text. I know you were working, and I was like, "This is such a weird move. Go with the guy with the worst stats." And yeah,
He's more
anyway,
likely to like cause goals against.
yeah. All right, well, we'll see what happens in the rest of that series. They play later
Yeah, I mean
today.
later today, Koskinen's got the start for game two, so we'll see if that helps settle the team down. We'll see if McDavid's pissed off enough to get the rest of the team kind of woken up because they need to be a little bit more aware of where they're at on the ice and who their check is because some of those Chicago players are have shown that they are dynamic and they need to kind of watch them a little bit better.
Yeah, they also need to put a little bit of respect on the name of Dominic Kubalik and
Yep.
not treat him like some rookie. He's a legitimate offensive threat. So you've got to respect that and make sure you're covering him. Um, so we'll see if they can adjust and turn the series around.
Yeah.
I'm pulling
So
for them.
yeah. So
So
one
we'll
other
see.
thing that happened in that first game there was that Drake Kajula hit on Tyler Ennis, so it came out
Right.
earlier today that Kajula got suspended for a game.
hmm Yeah, I
So I
think
was
that's
wondering what
fair.
you thought about that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he came in for the hit. He clearly got Ennis right in the head before following through into the rest of his body, but I thought it was a um, worthy of one game. I don't think he wasn't quite, it wasn't violent enough to warrant any more than one game. Um, but yeah, I thought it was a
Yeah.
fair suspension. How about you?
I have to agree. I mean, one game's fair. I mean, these are two similar height players. It's not like there's that weird height disadvantage that makes it easier to hit a guy in the head. They're both shorter players, and I mean, Ennis isn't leaning stupidly far forward, and by the time Kajula hits him, he's kind of back to where he was positioned at the start of Kajula's run at him. And the way that Kajula came in at Ennis is like he was only going to hit the head at that point, anyways. He
Yeah.
didn't really have like a trajectory of motion to hit much on the body.
Hmm.
So it's kind of like, yeah, that without, and the head was the principal point of contact. That was where the initial and primary and the brunt of the contact went. So I think that's definitely a suspension worthy hit.
Yeah. There was a bit of a similar play in the Panthers versus Islanders game where Mike Matheson hit Johnny Boychuk, and originally it sounded like they were going to give him a 5 in a game, but the referees reviewed the play and they eventually downgraded it to a 2, which I think was the correct call. But it's always interesting when they change the call on the ice. Or I guess they didn't officially make a call on the ice, and then the meeting of the minds to agree on what the call should be. Um, but I know
They kind
I
of
saw some
negated
a
it.
little bit of agitation from Islanders fans online about how that was downgraded because that would have allowed them to practice more of their power play and stuff. But the
Yeah.
Islanders ended up winning that game 2-1. We had spoken about how that series was probably going to be low scoring. Um, and so far it is 2-1. It is, kind of that more wait for a mistake kind of hockey.
Yeah.
It's been a little bit more entertaining than I thought it would be. I thought it was going to be super boring, but it's just marginally boring. So,
Just
uh,
marginally boring. Not fully.
yeah,
It's not like turn the game off boring. It's I just might be on my phone a little bit more boring.
yeah. It's if there's another game on at the same time in the Western Conference that I'm more into, it's kind of like I'll pay more attention to that game for sure. Um, Yeah, outside of that, I'm trying to think if there's any other storylines from that series matchup, but I really don't think that there was anything major.
I mean, Bobrovsky only gave up 2 goals.
Yeah, I mean that's good for him, right?
It's a good start for him.
Yeah. Um, yeah, no, I think no other real storylines out of that one so far. I'm sure I'm forgetting something, but looking forward to whatever happens next in that one. But the other game that was on game one was the Habs versus the Penguins. That one definitely
Surprising.
surprised everybody.
Yeah. My
And
bracket's ruined.
yeah, and it was exactly what we said. Carey Price stood on his head.
Yeah, so the
Um,
Habs came in, or the Penguins came in hot that game. They had 10 shots in the first 5 minutes of the game. Like that's on pace for I think it was like over 100 shots over the whole game if they kept that up. And Carey Price held his ground. The Canadians did not give up any goals in that, and then soon after they went and scored a goal and kind of played well the rest of the game. Like they didn't give up too many high quality chances. Carey Price held them in there, and eventually Jeff Petrie had a nice little goal on a bit of a defensive lapse by a couple of Penguins, and Habs take game one.
yeah, also I wanted to point out on that OT winner that was Zach Aston Reese said that he
Mm-hmm.
couldn't name the top line of the Montreal Canadiens, and who was out there to get the minus on the
Yeah,
OT
he was right there. He was
against
one
the
of the
Montreal
guys.
Canadiens top line, and he's the guy who's not checking his man. Oh,
Yep,
Zach Aston Reese. So maybe
he's the
shut
one
your mouth
standing there in the
and
lane.
respect your opponent a bit more. Otherwise, they'll embarrass you, and that's something that gets remembered.
Yeah,
So,
I'm sure. I'm
um,
sure he got a bit of a talking to in the locker room after that one.
yeah, it's a soundbite that your team can use against the other team can use against you, right?
Yeah,
You don't want to say anything that can inspire them to do well against you. But also for the Habs, they had a couple clutch goals from young players. They had Kotkaniemi and Nick Suzuki. Superior
yeah.
Propane. he got a he got a goal. So
I mean, that Kotkaniemi one was just an absolute fluke. It just like the weirdest little bounce. Like
yeah,
he just shoves it in with himself rather than actually shooting it. Just but you know what, it worked. That's playoff hockey. Whatever goes in, it's important.
yeah. The Suzuki one was nice at least. So there's that. But yeah, surprising for sure that the Habs were able to hang in there. They got the first two, and then Penguins kind of came back a little bit. Um, but yeah, nice to see the upset. They allowed a lot of shots. They got 41 shots on goal, the Penguins. So Carey Price, definitely the MVP of that
Yeah.
game for the Habs. Definitely
Were
first
you
star worthy.
surprised that Matt Murray got the start in game one and he's also getting a start in game two? Are you surprised that they went with him instead of Jari?
I was a little bit surprised. I thought that Jari had the better numbers, but I guess this is another case of air quote veteran getting the preference. But I would have thought that the Penguins would have shifted to Jari for game two just to give it an opportunity because they've shown in the past with the whole Fleury and Murray thing that they're willing to do that. But I guess I didn't watch all of that game. I'm not sure. I don't know if you can really fault Murray too much on any of those goals. Maybe in
No.
the Suzuki one, but unless he does something egregious, like really bad, I don't know if they'll put Jari in. But I'd like to see him get his shot because he's got the better numbers. He went to the All-Star game. He's a good goalie.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I wonder
um,
if they lose game two, if they switch it up and go with Jari to see if they can close it or get something going in the series because you got to make a change at some
yeah,
point if it's not working.
yeah, you'd have to think that if they go down 0-2, that they'll probably shake it up for sure. I'm hoping the Canadians can hang in there.
Hey, you
I
know
don't
what?
know.
I that'd be a fun story to watch, right? Just have that massive underdog, the team that barely made it in. Like that would piss so many people off because so many people are like, why are they in this? Like, they're just getting this like playoff spot handed out to them basically. But it'd be so fun to watch that underdog team take down one of the best in the league.
Yeah, for sure. And then the last game from day one was the much anticipated Calgary Flames versus the Winnipeg Jets, and quite a few storylines out of that one, mostly on the Jets side, where Mark Scheifele went into the boards awkwardly with Matthew Tkachuk kind of hot on his heels, and he went down and was writhing around in pain, and he left the game really early. How far into the
Just
game was that? Like,
half. It was like halfway through the first.
yeah, so super early. You lose like probably your best forward. That's hard to come back from.
Mm-hmm.
Wheeler stood up. He went over to Tkachuk eventually, and they had a fight. Um, Wheeler's definitely that I'm gonna do. He takes his role as captain very seriously, and
Yeah, no,
wants
he
to
stood up
step
for his
in.
teammate.
Um, so where do you fall on this whole Kachuk Scheifele thing? Because there was comments from Paul Maurice saying it was intentional, and what was the wording he used? It was a um, disgusting, dangerous play,
Yeah.
intentional. So where do you fall on that?
So even though I think that Matthew Kachuk is an agitating rat player, I don't see something like that. I don't see something that dangerous being intentional even from him. I don't think he could intentionally do that to another player just out of his own, morals or whatever, right? I
Yeah.
I think he intentionally wanted to take Scheifele into the boards hard, but if you kind of watch the play, like he kind of leaned off of the hit itself, and his leg when he tried to stop going into the boards, his one skate that got caught up with Scheifele's ankle, that one just bounced on him and went right up, so he didn't get the stop or the change in direction skating that he probably wanted. So I think that was just a really unfortunate accident, but I do think he meant to take Scheifele into the boards. I don't doubt that for a second because that's kind of where he fits in. Like he's gonna want to try and make a big hit on a big player to get some momentum for the team. That's kind of what he does. So I don't think the injury or what happened to Scheifele was intentional at all. And I think the Maurice's comments are smart because he's getting his team emotional and invested. And
hmm
as we saw coming into game two, the Jets kind of came out hot. They were good and they ended up taking game two.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you on your thoughts about his comments because there's some people saying that they're borderline unprofessional. I don't see it that way. I see it as a
No,
coach standing up for his
I
player and trying to fire his team up, just like
I
you
see it
said.
as that, as well as I see it as gamesmanship. It's kind of like
Yeah,
that, just that
absolutely.
the story of the game, the narrative going on in the series, that like, yeah, it's out of this, it's out of place because it's hockey and you don't see that type of thing come out very often. But we know Paul Maurice isn't a guy who's going to like suppress his thoughts or censor himself. He's just going to say what's on his mind in a sense, and I don't see any issue with him saying it.
Yeah, and Matthew Tkachuk, he is a rat and an agitator, but he's still one of Calgary's best players. I mean, we
Yep.
we we gave him the MVP nod this season, right, for the Flames. So if you can get into the head of the best player on the opposite team, that's smart, right? Like Tkachuk doesn't have to listen to him, but he's ultimately hearing everything that's being said, and he has to defend himself to the media and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I agree with your assessment on the play itself. I don't think it was intentional. I think, yeah, he's trying to check a guy on the other team. They go into the boards. Scheifele's like wheeling away from him, like he's turning away, and then I don't think Kachuk would even have time to decide, oh, there's his leg exposed. I'm going to kick it or whatever. Like it's a fast. If you watch it at full speed, there's no way that he would even be able to notice that. And if you watch it in slow speed, yeah, maybe, but as we know, being sports fans, slow speed, it just alters what it looks like.
It
It's
makes
not
everything look 20
accurate.
times worse.
Yeah,
Because
and
like then you don't have like your perception of what happened in real time, and like what we see in real time is a lot of what the players do in real time. we
yeah,
we we look at it in slow motion, and suddenly we can see like, oh well, they could have done this here, 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 and here, but between the start and end of that clip it's like zero point 0.3 seconds, and you're watching it take place over 10 seconds, so of course you're going to be able to find a lot of things to do.
yeah, it really distorts the timeline. And yeah, like he's going in to the boards, and it looks like his skate almost catches a rut or something, and it pops up. It's like the toe end of Kachuk's skate
Yeah.
pops up, and then yeah, like it looks like it goes up against his uh Scheifele's leg, but then that's kind of where like the camera pans up and you can't see it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I mean, there's word that Scheifele hurt his ankle, and like he was at the Jets game, um, with like he had like his shoe off, and there's word that he was in a boot. So it could be an ankle injury or something like that.
Yep.
But
What's the thing? Because the original assessment on what happened is that he caught his skate in a rut or something and got it jammed along the boards and twisted it. Like
yeah,
the whole thing with the skate coming up to his ankle didn't happen until after. So there was also talk today like he isn't expected to be out long term, but he's not going to be available for a game or two. And I saw another one that said he avoided damage to his Achilles, or he didn't suffer too much damage to that. So yeah, there could be a bit of an issue because the skate blade was right up at the ankle. But I think the main tricky part was him getting his skate caught at the bottom of the board, edging on the ice there, and then he kind of fell down on it and
yeah,
put his body weight into some awkward position along there.
yeah. And even in Paul Maurice's original comments, he said he could have sliced his Achilles. So it kind of showed that he knew that it wasn't cut, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah, because you'd know that immediately.
Yeah, he would know that
You'd probably see
immediately.
the blood, honestly, from one of those.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean it's good that it's not. I'm hoping
Yeah.
it's a quick recovery for Mark Scheifele. You never like to see a player writhing around in pain. I mean, as
No,
someone who
those
just
are
hurt their
hard.
ankle, I know that does hurt. Um, but hopefully he's back. But unfortunately for the Jets, that wasn't the only player that got hurt in that game. We also had Patrick Laine. Um, looked like he was in some pain with his arm or his wrist. Um, so he
Yeah, he got
missed.
tangled up with Giordano behind the net, I think, and must have
Hmm.
jammed his wrist or got it caught up in a weird angle, and he left in the middle of the third in game one
Yeah,
and missed game two as well.
yeah, he was in the stands as well. So Jets without two of their top six forwards, two,
Something like 30% of their season's goals were missing in that game.
yeah, and two guys on their power play unit. Um, pretty remarkable. But when I was watching the game, um, I can't remember who said it on the CBC or the Sportsnet feed, but they were saying this is a team that lost, 4 of their top 6 defensemen last year, and they're kind of used to that next man up mentality on the blue line. So it's not that much of a stretch for them to say, okay, next guy up for the forwards, you know?
Yeah, I mean that's a good assessment. And then we saw that very early on with I can't remember his name. Hansen scored the first goal, his first career goal in the NHL, his first playoff goal,
Yeah.
with a really really awesome shot coming down the wing.
Yeah, it was like Jansen Harkin or
Yes,
Jansen Harkins or something like
Jansen
that.
Harkins. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So
I just had the name Yannick Hansen in my head, and I couldn't get off
yeah.
of that.
Same letter combination, so I see where you got there. But yeah, I know it looked like a different team. They kind of rallied behind that mentality and had a really good game. Um,
I think a major player for the Jets this series is going to be Adam Lowry, who's really stepped up his play over the first couple of games. He's had some really good offensive instincts come out and show. He had that amazing backhand pass in the first game, and he's
mhm.
been contributing offensively quite well.
Yeah, he was in on the first 3 goals for the Jets in the series. I mean, I texted you in game 1. They have to release Lowry. I meant physically to go hit
Yeah.
everybody, but he's just being released offensively. He's killing it. So, um, good for him. They're definitely going to need some guys to step up and score more by committee than having just the big name guys, because now it's really just Wheeler and Kyle Connor. Um,
And
that were the
Connor's
big,
struggled a little bit coming into things, so
yeah. Yeah. Also noteworthy in this series so far is Johnny Gaudreau has looked pretty good. Uh, he got that power play goal in game 1. Um, I thought he's looked good.
he's been noticeable and he hasn't been completely suppressed and stifled like he was last season. And
Yeah, and
that's the same said for their line, because I mean for the line and their offensive depth really, because I mean Lindholm, Backlund, and Bennett have all contributed offensively already, which is more than they could save for a lot of what happened last season.
yeah, and Gaudreau drew a pretty important penalty in the last couple minutes, the last minute I think of game 2 when they were down a goal, so they could get a 6-on-4 opportunity. It didn't work out for them, but he put them in a good situation by using his skill and to draw that penalty. So he's been noteworthy in a good way. So that's good for Flame fans to see. So that
Yeah,
series is at 1-1 so far. Um, the only real thing I have to mention about the Coyotes and the Predators series is that the Predators started UC Saros, which I think is the right move. Um, would you agree? I mean, we kind of
I
said
think
that.
so.
Um,
Rene struggled this season. I do lean towards starting the guy who's been better recently than the one who has the experience, just because you don't know, you can't rely on the person turning it around.
yeah, yeah. I think on the game feed they were saying that UC Saros was um, the first guy not named Pekka Rinne since Dan Ellis to get a start for the Predators in
Yeah,
playoffs.
no,
So like that's
that's a
going
testament
back.
to the longevity of Pekka Rinne and net in Nashville. Like that's impressive.
Yeah. Also for the Predators, their big names are hitting the score sheet.
Yeah,
They kind of struggled this year, but Philip Forsberg already got 2 goals, 2 power play goals in that first game. Roman Josi was getting points. Matt Duchene had a weird play where the first goal of the game went off his chest and then went in past UC Saros like over his head. So he didn't hit the
hey,
score sheet in the
whatever
way he
works, right?
wanted to, but yeah, the first goal was against his own goalie, so that sucks for him. But for the Coyotes, it was kind of like we previewed, like that kind of that defense, um, kind of like overwhelming in the defensive zone, and then seize your opportunities. They got that Michael Grabner shorthanded goal breakaway, ended up being the game winner. So
And
they're
that's
just kind of
important for them to have. Like, I mean, we had so many question marks about whether or not their offensive players were going to be able to do anything this series. Sure enough, they go and score four goals in the first game, and guys like Ekman Larson, Dvorak, Keller, and Holland Kessel have all been doing well so far. But it's really good to see their depth players, like you said, Grabner, who can come in and pitch in that all-important goal when they get the opportunity to.
Yeah, yeah. Hall had 2 assists, and Kessel had 2 assists too. So, um, you know, stepping up when they're needed.
Yeah,
Good to see for them.
it's a good sign early on.
Yeah. Um, the series that I was most excited about, Blue Jackets and Maple Leafs, went the way I wanted it to. Where the Blue Jackets came out and just stifled any offense that the Toronto tried to get going, and then again, kind of the similar as Arizona, just take your opportunities when you can get them, and capitalize on them. And they ended up scoring first in the third period on a Cam Atkinson breakaway. Right after it was like right after the start of the period, Toronto had a really hot start to the third, and it was all Toronto for about a minute, and it looked like they were going to get a goal, and then I think it was Seth Jones just fired up the boards, and it went right to Atkinson, and he went in on a breakaway, and perfect shot placement, like that shot where it's like 13 inches off the ice, like right above the pad.
Beauty.
It was like that, and he went far side and just beat Anderson. And then they ended up getting an empty netter. So Blue Jackets, it was a good game for them. They started Korpisalo. Tortorella had that quote where it was, "I'm starting Korpisalo. Don't ask me why."
I do what I do. Don't question me.
Yeah. So Korpisalo, first ever playoff game start, gets the shutout.
Yeah.
That's pretty
I
cool to
ultimately
see
think
for him.
Korpisalo is the right one. I think Korpisalo, like, Merzlikins is good, but I think Korpisalo was more consistently good outside of having like a 10-game insanely hot streak. So I think Korpisalo is the right decision for that.
Yeah. Yeah, obviously it worked out for them. So I think they'll go with him again.
So I have a question for you about Toronto's roster.
Okay.
How was Nick Robertson?
I don't know. Sportsnet hasn't told me enough about who this guy is. I feel like I know his life story already.
It's like we turned on hockey coverage, and the first thing that comes on about the Maple Leafs is them just absolutely salivating over Nick Robertson. Like, most of us have never even heard of the guy before, but all of a sudden he's getting more coverage than like Matthews, Marner, and Tavares combined. And it was just crazy to me because I'd never even heard of this guy making the team already.
Is it bad when like there's a Toronto player that's really young and good? I mean, that kind of remains to be seen a bit for him, but I mean, from what I've seen, he's looked good. He's gotten some chances.
He's a talented player.
But the first thing that pops into my mind is, all right, how long are they going to have this guy before they can't afford to pay him and he goes somewhere else?
I mean,
right?
It's the pessimistic view, but it's also realistic for that team because they don't have, unless they manage to put somebody else on the long-term injured reserve, they're not really going to have the space to keep him long-term.
I mean, even Ilya Mikheyev, how long are they going to be able to keep that guy before he wants more money than they can give him?
Yeah.
So,
did you notice in the time on ice for Toronto that their fourth forward line got like 3 or 4 minutes of ice time?
I did notice that during the game.
Spezza, Gauthier, and Clifford had like between 3 and 4 minutes of ice time, basically.
I feel like it was the second period by the time I even saw them because I was watching that game with my roommate, and he was like, "Have we even seen their fourth line?" And so Toronto.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off about
no
Robertson
worries.
there, but I was just like, I just saw that and I was insane.
Yeah. So for Toronto, when they had Babs, the hot topic on ice time was how little Matthews played. But now it's like, is it going to be too much for these guys? Because
I mean, Matthews played 24 and a half minutes that first game.
That is a lot.
That's a lot for him. That's not generally sustainable for any forward.
Also, that's a lot of time being bashed around by Seth Jones all night.
Oh man, that's got to be rough.
If you didn't have the pleasure to watch that game, like, just that's like the game within the game. is Seth Jones versus Matthews. It's going to be
7 hits for Jones in that game. I imagine they were all against Matthews.
probably. He also destroyed Zach Hyman a few times. So Zach Hyman was getting it from Seth Jones for sure.
Right.
But I think Sportsnet had a really they talked about this during one of the intermissions, and it was, I think, for the first 6 of Matthews' shifts, Seth Jones was out there.
Yeah,
And
well, that's a
then
good way to kind of completely eliminate a guy's confidence early on. Is just go and stifle him with an elite level defender, shut him down, and then just don't
yeah.
even let him get into the game.
Yeah, and then he did get some chances, and it was when Seth Jones wasn't on the ice. So, um, you know that thing that McDavid does on the power play, where he goes out of the zone and then kind of pops back in, and
Yeah,
they hit him in stride. Um, look, Matthews is kind of doing the same thing, trying to get away from coverage and kind of lose himself, or like,
catch the guy's flat-footed as he's already in top flight.
yeah, yeah. So he's kind of trying to do that same thing. So I think he's not playing bad. He's just, he's being
Yeah,
smothered by Seth Jones.
I think that's going to be an important takeaway from that. Is like even if he doesn't put up points, like you got to look who he's playing against. Like
One of the best
a
defenders
Jones
in the
Werenski
league.
pairing. Like come on.
Yeah, and they're aggressive. Like Jones and Werenski are not afraid to jump up in the play. So
No.
if they wear them down and then jump in the other way, it's been working for Columbus. It's been actually really entertaining. So I hope that I can watch all of their games because they're fun. Um, and then the Wild and the Canucks. Um, Canucks looked really inexperienced, man. Like
Yeah.
they looked bad.
Yeah,
Um,
that's what I kind of guess would happen is like that first game, especially the Wild are going to come out with some of their more experienced guys, and they're probably going to take advantage of a slow Canuck or a slower starting Canucks team that doesn't know the type of intensity that you got to hop into the playoffs with.
yeah, you for sure nailed it on that one. That's exactly what happened. I mean, the very first thing that happened in the game of note really was the Canucks were going to go up on a power play. I mentioned this earlier. They were going to go up on a power play, and then they got caught on too many men, just nullified completely.
Yeah, was
And then
that the one that Fiala scored the first
yes,
goal there? Three
yeah,
minutes in, yeah,
right off a face-off, he just bombed it, and it was kind of one of those ones that kind of snuck through Markstrom a little bit. He probably like if for the goalie, he'd probably say, "I should have had that one," but it was a bomb
yeah.
right
And
off.
sometimes
Right
those
off.
off a face off, like you're just not expecting it, you're not like prepared for it, so they're just a little bit easier to sneak one in like that.
Yeah, yeah. And then as I mentioned earlier, the Canucks didn't get a power play until probably the last 5 minutes of the game, so they really didn't get a chance to get into the groove.
It doesn't help too that they went and took 27 penalty minutes as well, giving us a whole bunch of chances.
Yeah. Um, I guess I forgot one thing. The very first thing of note in the game was that Furland fought Foligno, and, and I was kind of giving my head a little bit of a shake, like, come on, man, like you missed like almost the entire season or like half the season with like concussion symptoms, and then you want to just jump into a fight. Like, I guess there's part of it to prove that, hey, I'm ready to play and blah blah blah. But it's like, you really want to put yourself at that risk again? Like, I don't know. And like the very beginning of the series, like there's no. I know Foligno was kind of a pest in the regular season towards Vancouver, but I don't know. It seemed kind of weird to me. Like, it's
Just a weird decision early
first,
on, yeah.
very first thing, basically. Like, there's no real bad blood yet, and then it's just all right. And then yeah, the Canucks took some really undisciplined penalties.
Well, like
Um,
Furland again going and spearing the guy on the bench.
yeah, yeah. All he had
Goes
to do
and
was just skate away.
yeah.
They were grabbing his stick when he was by the bench.
It's like at that point when they're
Just
doing
let it
that,
go
you
and
know
go
you've
away.
either got them or they're just trying to get under your skin, and he bit.
Yeah, try and draw the penalty, um,
Yeah,
rather than spear a guy. But he's lucky he didn't get called on the ice for that.
yeah, because
Um,
that's
that would have been probably a double minor or something.
yeah, and it probably
Um,
would have opened more avenue for an actual suspension because him and Luke Kunin actually just got fined for it
yeah,
for that altercation.
Yeah, so kind of weird. Tanner Pearson took a really undisciplined penalty in the offensive zone. He was skating behind the net when not Corpusalo, Stalock was playing the puck, and he slashed him in the back of the leg. Um, so goalies have no padding there, so he slashed him in the back of the leg. You could hear the fuck. They didn't quite catch that one,
The
so you
tape
could
delay's
hear that.
failing.
Um, and it was an easy call for the ref. Like he's right there, and he's gonna call it, and it was just like, what are you doing? Like you're frustrated, obviously, but why
Yeah.
never go after the goalie? Like when you're the only one by him. Like it's so
No, and
obvious.
like your team's down, you're frustrated. The worst thing that you can do is go and take a penalty and put your team shorthanded.
200 feet from your own net. Like it's
Yeah,
just
especially one like
coach's
that.
nightmare.
Like an unnecessary stick infraction, like you said, 200 feet from your net. Like, come on.
Guy should have been benched for that, honestly. Like that's just so selfish and undisciplined. That's just a nightmare. Um, so also of note in this series is they didn't have Jake Virtanen or Louis Eriksson in the lineup. Um, I know Jake Virtanen had reportedly a really not a great camp, but I think they got to put him in the lineup. Um, Minnesota was kind of that again that defensive style, really good at puck retrievals in the Canucks zone. Um, like aggressive forechecking, but also like really aggressive in the defensive zone. I think that they need Virtanen. They need his speed to get by some of that. Even if he's not the most defensively sound guy,
Well, I
use
mean, who
him.
is on that team?
Yeah, really, use
He
him
fits right in.
very. Use pick his spots, like put him out in the
Yeah.
right time, and
And the
and
thing too is like you were saying after that first game where they were just taking undisciplined, unnecessary penalties. Like, I mean, there's it wouldn't be unheard of for someone to get benched for some of their decisions during that game. It's just a way to shake things up and be like, hey, we're watching your performance. Like, smarten up.
yeah, exactly. I think they really got to put. I think they got to give Jake Virtanen a chance here. He's a good player. He's got some goals for them. Shotgun Jake, get him, give him a chance. Um, and then I think they got to put him on a line with Besser and Pedersen. They or put Besser with Pedersen rather. Um, they were doing they're shaking the lines up a lot, but I think Pedersen was really getting some grief from the Wild. So I think
Yeah.
they gotta try and
Someone like him might have a bit of trouble matching up against guys like Ryan Suter and Matt Dumba. They're both a bit bigger, physical guys, so
yeah, he was getting
they might want
dumped.
to throw someone like who's a bit more physical or a bit of a bigger presence to protect Pedersen a bit, or just give him a bit more space on the ice to work with.
Yeah, yeah, we'll see. Also, JT Miller got he blocked a shot with his hand. It looked like it really hurt him. They were icing it
Ruh-roh.
down on the bench, and there was a time when on the actual power play that the Canucks had, Miller was on that left point position, and Pedersen gave him a pass from the right half boards, and it was a pretty hard pass, but it looked like he didn't really have the strength in his hands to keep the puck. So it went off his stick and went out of the zone. So I hope that he didn't break his hand or have any issues with his hand, but it looked like he was hurting pretty good
Yeah, I haven't
after
heard
that.
anything yet, so that's a good sign that he's not going to be anything too serious.
Yeah, we'll see how that develops, but it looked like it really stung him. It looked, when it happened, it looked bad, and then he went to the bench and was icing it down and everything, but even his play after that, it looked like he wasn't at 100%. Um, so yeah, Stalock gets gets the shutout. Markstrom looked good too after that first goal. He bailed the team out with a lot of saves. It could have been a much different score line. But
Yeah, well, I mean, look at this too. We're talking about bad penalties. Markstrom even strength saved 27 to 27 shots, gave up two
yeah,
shots on the power play, gave up two goals. So
yeah, I
they
mean,
don't go and take those dumb penalties, and suddenly you might have a closer game.
yeah, I mean, I've kind of been documenting my path to Canucks fandom a little bit on this podcast, but I was upset that they weren't helping him out. That he wasn't getting any sort of backup. The defense was shitty. They couldn't make a pass all night. It was really frustrating to watch. Um, stay out of the box, make a pass, don't do the extra pass. All of that really inexperienced things. Which is weird because you've got guys like JT Miller, you've got Tanner Pearson, you've got Tyler Toffoli, you've got quite a few guys, Jake Beagle. You've got guys who've gone pretty far in the playoffs, and you're still seeing even those guys make those inexperienced or nervous plays. So a really big learning opportunity for them, and we'll see if they can turn it around.
Yeah, things to watch over the next game or two here.
Yeah. And then for the seeding games, um, Philly looks good. They're looking like the real
They
deal.
were on. They were
Yeah.
there. They showed up.
Yeah, and Boston's not looking great. Tuukka Rask didn't get the start. Um, Halak did, but Halak's pretty good too.
Rask should be back for the next game. He had a he there was a bit of a he told the media what happened. He had a cough over the weekend, so he self-reported the symptom of having a cough and got quarantined until he had a couple of negative tests. So I think he got that now, and he should be back for the next game.
That's a smart thing to do. Responsible.
Yeah.
But I mean, Boston just does not look great, even without Rask. They just did not look great.
Which is kind of surprising. They're usually pretty good at preparing and being ready for, the things that for the start of the season or the start of the playoffs and all that.
Yeah, I watched that game, and Brad Marchand made a few good moves here and there, but outside of that, their top line was invisible. I don't even remember hearing Bergeron's name. Pasternak invisible too. So
that's kind of what happened in last playoffs too. By the end, is that Boston's top line was invisible, and it was their depth that kind of propelled them to the end of the cup final like they were.
Yeah. And then the other noteworthy thing that happened in the seeding games was Nazem Kadri scored the latest game-winning goal in regulation, basically of all time.
Yeah, in NHL playoff history. So he beat, I think it was UC Jokinen, like about 10 years ago, scored a goal with 0.2 seconds left. That was a game winner. And Nazem Kadri broke that by scoring a goal with 0.1 seconds on the clock in regulation.
Yeah.
And it was such a nice play too. He was in the slot, in the right position, gets the rebound right in his wheelhouse, and he just smacked it into the open net because Binnington was
wide
off making
open.
the other save. Just a wide open net, and he potted it. Like that would have been so cool to watch that goal happen.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. I wasn't watching that game. I was watching another one, and I was trying to check the score, and it said it was like 2-1, and that Kadri scored at 20 minutes in the third.
Ooh.
But it was going to a shootout or something. So the app just broke. it didn't know what to do.
Nazem Kadri is responsible for breaking the NHL's internet or the NHL's infrastructure.
Yeah, so that was kind of funny, and I was like, "Oh, let's go to a shootout." What? And then I was like, "Oh, okay." Kadri scored.
So it's like
no
it
time
recorded
left.
as a regulation and overtime goal.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. Definitely a weird one, but really cool. And that was a big matchup between the Blues and the Avalanche.
Yeah, the best of the West, really.
Yeah, so those some heavyweights. Anything else that you wanted to go over so far?
The only thing that I forgot to mention, we were talking about Carolina and New York, is that I really think this iteration of the Hurricanes roster can and will be a cup winner within the next few years. That they have such a good system and a good team built that as long as they can retain most of that core, they should be making another very deep run into the playoffs very soon. That it's rare you have a team that plays in the playoffs as well as the Hurricanes have, and that they've got something special going on there.
Yeah, they're a good team. As much as I don't want to admit it because they knocked off the Caps last year, they're a good team. They've got a lot of great players. The one thing that I see they might struggle on is goaltending. If Mrazek's not their guy, but
yeah, I think They've got this prospect, Alex Nedeljkovic, who's
Hmm.
supposed to be a very good goaltending prospect, and within the next couple of years, he should be starting to move his way up into the NHL.
Okay. Hopefully they can fast track him a little bit, but not rush it.
Yes. Yeah, goalies are kind of like that voodoo magic, so it's hard to kind of say when and if they'll make it, but that's kind of their hope, I think, is for this guy.
Yeah, I mean they're definitely a great team. They're really outmatching the Rangers in pretty much everything right now. Yeah, I don't think I really have anything else to discuss. I'm really looking forward to how some of these series play out and if teams can bounce back or if they're just going to get steamrolled. So we'll have to
Yeah.
wait and see.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying the new trend over the last couple of years of upsets being the norm.
Yeah, I think it was all of the unders on betting were were coming out winning. So
Yeah,
um, all of the lower seed teams basically have been winning. It's been, I mean, there's a few exceptions, but it's been kind of cool that way.
I have to agree. And I think that about wraps things up here for this week on Clappercast. So make sure you rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast, and you can spread it around, share it with your family and friends if you like what you're hearing. To keep up to date with the latest content, you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Clappercast Media or on Twitter at Clappercast. Let us know how your team is doing so far in the comments down there. And thank you all for tuning in. We'll be back soon with more NHL playoff coverage.